This video was created using Gemini Notebook's audio overview features based on an Article 1 posted on October 15, 2020, on my blog Quiet Beef. The original article was titled, "Do Constraints, What a Hassle, Lead to Breakthroughs? Or Maybe Not? Wait, why am I suddenly talking about NHK?" This content is designed primarily for listening. The visuals do not synchronize with the spoken audio. In other words, the images are largely unrelated to the actual content. While there are occasional cut-ins featuring related images or explanations, missing them won't hinder your understanding of the topic. Please feel free to enjoy the video however you like, whether by watching, listening, or both. The world is full of troublesome constraints. Yet, sometimes, those very constraints that cause us such grief can pave the way for breakthroughs and new ideas. In this video, I explore that process, starting with old celebrity gossip about stars refusing to work together, drawing an analogy to musical phrasing, and somehow winding up sharing my thoughts on NHK's reliance on subcontractors.
If you want to, absolutely guarantee that your company or your team or even just you personally never creates anything brilliant ever again, the formula is actually surprisingly simple.
Oh, yeah. It's not what people think it is.
All right. You just give yourself an unlimited budget, you remove all the deadlines, and you guarantee that no one will ever be fired or held accountable for the outcome.
I mean, that sounds like a dream job for most people.
Exactly. Because we have this romanticized ideal that pure, unadulterated freedom is the ultimate catalyst for genius, We think the only barrier between us and our masterpiece is a lack of resources or, a lack of permission.
It's deeply comforting to believe that, to think that if the gates were just thrown open, our true potential would finally pour out. But when you step into the actual messy mechanics of how human beings generate groundbreaking ideas, that wide open horizon is actually completely paralyzing.
Paralyzing? How so?
Well, neurologically speaking, when the brain faces zero friction and infinite choices, it just defaults to the most energy-efficient path. It relies on established patterns. It creates the most predictable, safe outcome possible.
Which brings us perfectly to our source material for today's deep dive. We've got something incredibly unique for you today.
We really do. It's a wild ride.
Yeah. We are looking at a Japanese blog post from late 2020. It's by an author operating under the pen name Quiet Beef.
Quiet Beef. Love that name.
Right. And this post is this bizarre, brilliant manifesto on why your most annoying workplace rules, the bureaucratic red tape you just absolutely despise, and all those limitations you fight against might actually be the only things forcing you to do good work.
The title alone is just fantastic. It's called Constraints, which are a hassle-caused breakthroughs, I guess. And then I end up talking about NHK lull.
I mean, that title tells you exactly what kind of chaotic energy we're dealing with here.
Oh, absolutely. Quiet Beef possesses this fascinatingly erratic analytical style. They have this ability to hyperfixate on a seemingly trivial piece of cultural detritus and then spiral it out into a profound sociological critique.
Right. They definitely don't write in a straight academic line. They follow the friction.
Exactly. And the friction they start with here is grounded in the incredibly murky, hyper-dramatic waters of Japanese celebrity gossip.
Yeah, so let's get into the specifics of that inciting incident because it sounds like standard tabloid fodder at first. So it's late 2020. A major television network, TBS, is gearing up for a January premiere of a drama called Ore no Ai no Hanashi.
Which translates to Story of My House, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The lead is a very famous actor named Tomoya Nagase, and the network also casts this massive A-list actress named Erika Toda. But almost immediately, production hits a brick wall.
A huge wall.
Right, because another well-known actor, Masahiro Higashide, was slated to appear in the drama. But Erika Toda drew a hard line in the sand and explicitly refused to co-star with him.
It was an absolute non-negotiable ultimatum. And in the power dynamics of this particular casting, Toda held all the leverage. She was the massive draw.
So the network just caved.
Oh, totally capitulated. Higashide lost the job. His appearance was completely scrapped.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, to understand why Quiet Beef cares about this at all, we have to look past the surface-level diva behavior. We have to examine the institutional architecture of the Japanese talent agency system. The why behind Toda's ban is rooted in a highly publicized scandal from earlier that year.
The affair, right.
Right. Higashide had been involved in an extramarital affair with a much younger actress named Erika Kurata.
Which, happens in Hollywood every Tuesday.
Sure.
But the blast radius of a scandal in the Japanese entertainment industry, it operates under a totally different set of physics, doesn't it?
Oh, entirely. It's not just about public disapproval, it's about corporate alignment. See, Kurata, the younger actress involved in the affair, happens to be a junior member of a talent agency that Toda has deep ties with and immense loyalty toward.
Ah, so it's protective.
Exactly. The blog post notes that Toda was furious about the optics and the systemic unfairness of the fallout. The perception within the industry was that Kurata, the junior actress, was still sipping muddy water.
Sipping muddy water. Man, that is a vivid phrase.
It really perfectly encapsulates the punitive nature of the industry. I mean, she is enduring public humiliation, taking the absolute brunt of the career consequences, losing endorsements, and just being banished to the bottom of the industry barrel.
Meanwhile, Toda looks over and sees Higashide, the older, married man who initiated the affair, shamelessly attempting this mainstream comeback.
Right. Just waltzing into a primetime TBS drama as if he hadn't just severely damaged the earning potential and reputation of her junior colleague.
So Toda's refusal to co-star wasn't just personal distaste. It was like a punitive economic block.
A statement of institutional solidarity, yeah.
And this is where we start seeing the gears of the machine grind to a halt. Because Quiet Beef points out that Toda's refusal doesn't exist in a vacuum. It triggers this massive cascading effect across the industry, generating what is known in Japan as an NG list.
A no-good list.
Right. And these lists are essentially the dark matter of the entertainment industry. You can't see them, but their gravitational pull dictates what is and isn't possible before a script is even written.
The logistics of casting suddenly become a total nightmare of interlocking vetoes. Let's map out the blast radius the author describes.
Okay, lay it out for us.
So Toda's agency, the one aligned against Higashide, is an absolute powerhouse. It represents major, bankable stars like Ryoko Hirosu, Michiko Kichise, and Sayaka Yamaguchi.
Okay, heavy hitters.
Huge. Every single one of those actresses is now incredibly complicated, if not entirely impossible, to cast alongside Higashide. The agency will not allow their talent to be used to rehabilitate his image.
That makes sense. And then you look at the agency representing Kurata, the younger actress. They also have a massive roster of top-tier talent. Kasumi Arimura, Eri Tokunaga, Mayuko Fukuda, Hanuka Matsumoto.
Yep, that entire pool of talent is walled off.
And obviously, anyone from the agency representing Higashide's wife, the actress Anne, who he cheated on, is fundamentally off-limits forever.
Forever. And then you add to that the peripheral agencies and corporate sponsors who were inconvenienced.
Yeah.
The ones who had to pull commercials or suffered financial damages due to morality clauses in their contracts when the scandal broke.
So they add him to their internal NG lists too?
Exactly. Higashide essentially has these invisible, heavy shackles on his career. Imagine a casting director trying to assemble an ensemble cast. Every time they pick up the Higashide puzzle piece, they realize it magnetically repels half the other pieces on the table.
Right. The sheer bureaucratic friction of getting him in a room with other actors just becomes completely paralyzing.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I'm looking at this massive web of celebrity drama, affairs, agency blacklists, and punitive casting blocks. And my immediate reaction is that this is a total disaster for television producers.
An administrative nightmare.
Right. So why are we analyzing this? Where's the insight for you, the listener, who probably doesn't cast Japanese soap operas?
Well, this is exactly where Quiet Beef anticipates the reader's fatigue and executes this brilliant pivot. Right after laying out this incredibly dense, tangled web of agency politics, the author explicitly states, I actually don't care about this story at all.
Wait, what? They just spent paragraphs explaining it.
I know. The author acknowledges they have no real stake in Erika Toda's personal vendettas or Higashide's career trajectory. They aren't analyzing this as a consumer of tabloid gossip. They are analyzing the friction itself.
Okay, so reframing the NG list.
Yes. Quiet Beef looks at this massive, annoying, bureaucratic NG list, this thing that makes everyone's job exponentially harder, and they propose a radical reframing. They ask, wouldn't it be interesting if there were a lot more co-starring NGs among powerful entertainers?
So they view these restrictions not as roadblocks, but as catalysts for creativity.
Exactly. Quiet Beef uses a very specific Japanese term here, medokusai.
Medokusai. What does that mean exactly?
It roughly translates to bothersome, troublesome, or a profound hassle.
Like filling out paperwork.
Yeah, it's the feeling of opening an email and realizing you have to fill out 7 different compliance forms just to get a basic expense approved.
Oh, the worst.
But the core thesis here is that medokusai situations, these heavy artificial constraints, they do not stifle art. They are the prerequisite for a breakthrough.
I mean, if we think about it, it's like looking at a fully stocked kitchen. You walk into a Michelin star kitchen with Wagyu beef, truffles, caviar, and every spice known to humanity.
You're going to make a fantastic classic dish.
Right. You'll make a perfectly seared steak with a truffle reduction. It's safe, it's delicious, and it's completely expected. But if you walk into that same kitchen and the head chef says, okay, your constraint is that you must make a gourmet meal, but you are only allowed to use a jar of pickles, a scoop of peanut butter, and a bottle of cheap hot sauce. And by the way, the stove is broken.
Oh, wow.
Right. Your brain has to shift gears entirely. The restriction forces your brain to work differently.
That is a perfect analogy. Because to understand why this works, we have to look at the neuroscience of problem solving. When you operate without constraints, your brain relies on its default mode network. It retrieves the easiest, most previously successful solutions.
The Wagyu beef.
Exactly. In the context of television casting, a producer without constraints will simply cast the two most popular actors who always work well together. It guarantees a baseline level of success with zero cognitive load.
But when you introduce a Medokisai constraint, when you tell the producer that the two most popular actors are legally forbidden from being in the same room, you disrupt the pattern.
Right. The executive function takes over. You can no longer rely on muscle memory. You have to molecularly deconstruct the ingredients. You have to figure out how the acidity of the pickle brine can cut the fat of the peanut butter. You are forced to innovate out of sheer desperation.
And Quiet Beef's argument is that if the television industry was riddled with these massive NG lists, producers couldn't rely on the safe, obvious combinations. They would be forced to look at the margins.
They would be forced to discover new talent and take massive risks just to survive the constraint.
And to prove this point, Quiet Beef doesn't stay in the television industry, which I love.
Oh, this pivot is amazing.
In one of the most eccentric leaps I've ever seen in a piece of cultural criticism, the author completely abandons actors and talent agencies and pivots directly into the mathematics and psychology of modern jazz music theory.
It's so wild, but it works so well. They decide to personify musical notes to explain the sociology of constraints. It forces the reader to stop thinking about human personalities and start thinking about structural dynamics.
So let's walk through this musical analogy. Quiet Beef asks us to imagine a standard C major diatonic scale.
Right, the foundation of Western music. The white keys on a piano. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si.
It's familiar, deeply ingrained in our cultural ear, and entirely safe. The author asks us to imagine a standard safe melody constructed from this scale. A simple eighth note phrase, mi, do, re, mi.
And Quiet Beef analyzes this simple phrase emotionally. When you play mi, do, re, mi over a C major chord, it sounds perfectly stable. All the notes belong. There is absolutely no cognitive dissonance for the listener.
The frequencies align nicely.
Exactly. The math aligns in a way that our brains interpret as calm and resolved. It is the musical equivalent of the A-list actors who always work together. It's the plain toast of auditory experiences.
Plain toast, I like that.
Yeah, you hear it, your brain immediately recognizes the pattern, processes it with zero friction, and then immediately forgets it because it demanded nothing of you. It's perfectly fine, but ultimately it's mediocre and completely predictable.
Now, here comes the twist. What if the musical note Mia develops a massive ego?
Imagine me is Erica Toda.
Yes. Mi calls the composer into the dressing room and declares a strict co-starring ban against the note do. Mia refuses to ever share a measure with go again. And furthermore, Mi acts like a diva and demands to only appear at the very end of the phrase, taking the final bow.
The composer is now faced with a massive Medokisai constraint. Their safe, reliable, easily digestible mi, do, re, mi melody has been completely destroyed by internal agency politics.
The obvious path is blocked.
Exactly. They have to end the phrase on mi, but they cannot use the safe stepping stone of do to get there. They're staring at the peanut butter and the pickles.
Because they can no longer use the safe actors, those diatonic notes that naturally fit the chord progression, they are forced to look at the margins. They have to hire unknown, previously unused actors.
In Quiet Beef's specific example, the composer is forced to hire the notes Fa and D sharp to build the bridge to mi. So instead of the safe mi, do, re, mi, the composer writes a new phrase, Fa, D sharp, mi.
Okay, so let's dive into the psychology of this sound. Quiet Beef points out that this technique is called an approach note in modern jazz, right?
Yes. And to understand why this is a breakthrough, we have to look at the physics of sound and the psychology of expectation. Let's look at the note Fe in the context of a C major chord. It is not just a different flavor. It is actively hostile to the environment.
Hostile? Wait, why?
Because in traditional music theory, playing Fe over a C major chord is fundamentally dangerous. It's considered an avoid note or a taboo note, and there's a mathematical reason for that. A C major chord contains the note E or Mi, if you play an F or Fe over it. Those two notes are only a half step apart.
Ah, they clash.
Viscerally. Their sound waves physically clash in the air, creating a fast, vibrating interference pattern called beating. The human ear interprets that specific mathematical interference as intense dissonance.
So starting with Fe actually creates a profound sense of anxiety for the listener.
Exactly. The brain, which is a pattern recognition machine expecting the comfortable plain toast of C major, suddenly hears this clash and triggers a mild alarm state. It thinks, wait, the math is wrong here. Are these notes even correct?
It creates this floating, ungrounded feeling like you're musically lost in the woods.
Yes, the tension is entirely intentional. And then the melody moves from Fe to D sharp, which makes the situation even worse.
Because D sharp isn't even in the C major scale.
Right. It's a foreign invader that it doesn't belong in the key signature at all. So the anxiety compounds. Their brain is now actively struggling to find a pattern it recognizes.
The tension is ratcheting up. The listener is just subconsciously screaming for a resolution.
And then comes the payoff, the final note. The diva who demanded to go last. Me. The resolution.
Ah, I can almost feel the relief.
When the melody finally lands on me, perfectly locking into the C major chord after navigating the anxiety of Fe and the alien weirdness of D sharp, the psychological relief is immense.
Quiet Beef emphasizes this point heavily, right? Because you are put through that anxiety, the final arrival at Miki feels incredibly comforting and satisfying. Way more than if you had just heard the safe melody.
Oh, exponentially more. The tension creates the necessary context for a massive emotional and neurochemical release. Your brain literally rewards you with dopamine for successfully surviving the dissonance and finding the pattern again.
That's wild. And there's a specific word the author uses for this, isn't there?
Yes, dohamari.
Dohamari.
It translates roughly to being completely addicted or profoundly hooked on something, plunging headfirst into an obsession. Quiet Beef argues that this tension and release mechanic is so powerful, so psychologically satisfying that listeners become dohamari to it. They become addicted to the anxiety of the approach note because the resolution is so sweet.
So connecting this back to your daily life, you have to endure the uncomfortable fa to appreciate the mai. The safe mi, do, re, mi never gives you that high. The constraint forced the composer to create tension, which resulted in a masterpiece.
Exactly. And having established this universal rule of creative constraints through jazz, Quiet Beef turns their sights back to the television industry. This is where the sociological critique really begins in earnest.
Yeah, we take that jazz theory and apply it back to see why Japanese TV is failing to innovate. Quiet Beef points out that whenever you turn on the TV, you see the exact same celebrities.
The entire industry is stuck playing mi, do, re, mi on an endless loop.
Right. They rely entirely on that safe, mediocre melody.
Television uses the actors who have high popularity scores, who have no scandals, who fit perfectly into the established demographic algorithms. They are terrified of the no-fe. They're terrified of any casting choice that might create cognitive dissonance or anxiety for the viewer.
And because there is no tension, there is no payoff.
No dohamari. Viewers aren't addicted anymore. They are just passively consuming it like background noise in a waiting room.
So the author circles back to the NG list. If we instituted universal NG lists, producers couldn't pair the usual stars together. They'd be forced to cast complete unknowns.
They'd have to dip into the talent pool of theater actors, underground comedians, rookies who never get called. The musical equivalents of Fe and D sharp. Now, Quiet Beef is pragmatic about this. They openly admit that if you start doing this, you're going to get a lot of what they call skunks.
Skunks, like the animal.
Well, the term is suka, meaning misses, failures, flops. If you introduce dissonance, sometimes it just sounds bad. If you take a risk, by definition, you increase the chance of failure.
But the author admits this would be the only chance to discover unknown, brilliant talent. You have to be willing to broadcast a flop to find the next superstar.
You have to endure the dissonance to find the new harmony.
So why doesn't TV do this? If it's the only way to innovate, why are they so stubbornly committed to the safe path?
Here, Quiet Beef points the finger squarely at a massive systemic roadblock, Dentsu.
Dentsu, the advertising giant.
Yes. For context, Dentsu is Japan's largest advertising and public relations agency. They wield an almost unimaginable, monopolistic level of influence over the media landscape in Japan. They control the ad budgets, which means they control the networks.
It's like Hollywood focus grouping on steroids.
Exactly. Quiet Beef explains that every single talent, every actor, comedian, whatever, has a strict evaluation and rating from Dentsu. These ratings are based on exhaustive market research, likability scores, demographic appeal, and intense risk assessment.
So casting isn't an intuitive art form anymore, it's a math equation.
It's designed by actuaries. The entire system is meticulously designed to entirely avoid the anxiety of the unknown fairy. Put yourself in the shoes of a middle management TV producer. You are looking at a Dentsu spreadsheet. Are you going to take a chance on an unproven, brilliant underground actor?
No way, because if it fails, I get fired for ignoring the metrics.
Exactly. But if you cast the safe, Dentsu-approved A-lister and the show fails, you don't get fired. You just say, well, the algorithm said it would work.
So the Dentsu rating system is basically an anti-constraint. It provides a heavily lit, perfectly paved map of the safest possible route and entirely eliminates the necessity for creative problem solving. It's a shield against personal accountability.
That is perfectly stated.
And the author's reaction to this stagnation is wild. You'd expect this passionate call to arms, right? A fiery manifesto demanding that TV tear down the algorithms.
But that's not what we get at all. The author's reaction is just nihilistic laughter. They literally type out haha with crying, laughing emojis. It's this profound, almost chilling apathy.
Right? They don't even watch TV anymore. They note that Netflix and cable are making much better content because they aren't beholden to those exact same Dentsu ratings.
There is a quote from the blog that perfectly encapsulates this. The author writes, "What decays will ultimately decay no matter how much you struggle."
That is chilling.
Right. They suggest that those who have no intention of changing should just survive as long as their downward inertia from the peak lasts. Let terrestrial TV die its natural declining death.
It's a brutal Darwinian assessment. Like, terrestrial TV is a dinosaur staring up at a meteor, and Quiet Beef is just pulling up a lawn chair with some popcorn.
Just watching it happen.
Yeah.
But just as Quiet Beef is about to wash their hands of the entire broadcast industry and log off, they remember one final glaring example. An institution that represents the absolute taxpayer-funded zenith of avoiding constraints and risk.
NHK.
Yes. Japan's Public Broadcasting Corporation.
The equivalent of the BBC or PBS, but with a massive, legally mandated funding structure. Quiet Beef uses NHK as the ultimate case study of an organization that has engineered its entire existence to eliminate the constraint of personal accountability.
Quiet Beef shares this shocking realization about the actual production pipeline at NHK. You know, the public perception is that NHK is this proper, highly prestigious channel where elite journalists and producers meticulously craft high-quality programming.
Right. But the reality is that NHK has completely hollowed itself out. They outsource massive amounts of their production. The camera work, editing, set design, broadcasting, it's all outsourced to subcontractors. And then those subcontractors outsource to subcontractors.
It's a labyrinth of external companies doing the actual physical work of the public broadcaster.
Now, when I read this, I immediately pushed back. I was thinking, isn't outsourcing just to save money? Apple uses Foxconn to build iPhones, right? How is NHK uniquely malicious here?
Right. It seems like standard corporate efficiency. But the expert bureaucratic maneuvering that Quiet Beef unpacks goes way beyond saving a few yen. The author argues that the primary benefit isn't financial efficiency. The biggest benefit is making the, quote, locus of responsibility ambiguous.
The locus of responsibility ambiguous.
It is about creating human shields. Let's look at the culture of elite Japanese corporations. NHK does not just hire anybody off the street. They hire elite employees through what is essentially a highly competitive membership system.
These are top-tier graduates from Tokyo University, Kyoto University.
It's exactly. Entering a lifelong, highly prestigious career track. They are the golden children of the Japanese bureaucracy. And within that culture, there is an unspoken rule: you absolutely cannot have a failure on your record.
The author explains the mindset, right? We don't want to ruin the future of our brilliant employees over one or two mistakes.
Because a mistake isn't a learning opportunity, it's a permanent stain. It halts your mobility forever.
So how do they guarantee these golden children never make a mistake?
You ensure they never actually touch the risky work. You use the subcontractors as a buffer layer. If a documentary fails or there's a technical error, the elite NHK producer's career is completely safe. The blame falls entirely on the subcontractor.
The subcontractor takes the PR hit, they get fired, and the NHK executive just tut-tuts and hires a new subcontractor.
The core institution remains untarnished because it has successfully outsourced the risk.
This makes me furious on behalf of you, the listener, or any taxpayer, really, because we have to talk about the hypocrisy of the funding model.
Oh, it is the absolute crux of the author's outrage. NHK is not a private company competing in the free market. They operate under a government mandate that essentially forces every single citizen with a TV to pay a reception fee.
Guaranteed infinite revenue.
Right. Zero financial risk. And despite having the ultimate safety net of public funding, which would allow them to take massive creative risks, they actively slice up and hide their own accountability.
Quiet Beef highlights this with some staggering numbers. The average NHK employee salary is around 17 million yen. That's well over 6 figures in US dollars.
An incredibly lucrative position. And they also note the surprisingly early retirement age of 55 for these elite employees.
Which seems like a perk at first. Retire early, enjoy your wealth.
But the bureaucratic genius doesn't stop at 55. Quiet Beef unpacks the final piece of this puzzle, the Amakudari ecosystem.
Amakudari, descent from heaven.
Yes. It's a highly criticized practice in Japanese bureaucracy. Elite officials retire early at 55 and are immediately given incredibly lucrative, high-ranking executive positions in affiliated semi-private organizations.
And how does NHK facilitate this descent from heaven? By utilizing the exact same subcontractor system we just talked about.
Exactly.
They intentionally create this massive web of affiliated organizations and technical subsidiaries just to generate these Amakudari posts for their own retirees.
Let's trace the life cycle. From age 25 to 55, the subcontractor system serves as a shield, absorbing all risks so the employee's record is spotless. Then, at 55, they retire. And that exact same affiliated network provides them with a cushy CEO role for the next 15 years.
A double layer of job security.
An impenetrable taxpayer-funded fortress of career preservation. And this is where the author's tone shifts to this dark, exhausted admiration. Quiet Beef notes, completely without irony, they are smart.
They aren't praising the morality, they're praising the architectural genius of the bureaucracy.
It is flawless in its execution. But if we pull this all the way back to the jazz composer.
Oh, the contrast is staggering. Think about the jazz composer. They use constraints, the forced use of the uncomfortable note fa to create tension. They embrace the risk of sounding terrible because they know it is the only path to a beautiful breakthrough resolution.
They lean into the Madokusai. But NHK has engineered a multi-layered, multi-billion yen bureaucracy strictly to eliminate every possible constraint, specifically personal accountability.
By completely removing the risk of failure, they guarantee creative stagnation. They guarantee that they will only ever play the safe mi, do, re, mi melody forever, funded by the public.
It is the ultimate tragedy of the blank canvas, institutionalized on a national scale. When you have unlimited money, guaranteed revenue, and zero personal risk, you do not create masterpieces, you create a labyrinth of middle management.
An institution terrified of a single wrong note.
Exactly. When faced with a system perfectly insulated against risk, there's no approach note that can save it. It simply has to decay.
It's a profound sociological observation. And what makes it so remarkable is that this entire critique of bureaucratic rot was born out of a throwaway tabloid article about two actors refusing to work together.
Right. And the author is incredibly self-aware of this insane trajectory. The ending of the blog post is fantastic. After this deep dive into public broadcasting, Quiet Beef suddenly snaps back to reality.
They realize they have strayed impossibly far from the initial link about Erika Toda. They write, it's become an irrelevant development again. The opening article link turned out to be completely meaningless.
And then they joke about their own wandering mind with their catchphrase, "As expected, my developmental disability is showing." Haha. It's a self-deprecating way to acknowledge their nonlinear thinking.
But it's also the ultimate proof of their concept. Their mind, which jumps from gossip to jazz theory to Densu algorithms to the Amakudari system, is itself a rejection of the safe me, do, ro, me way of thinking.
Yes. They are writing in approach notes. They are intentionally introducing cognitive dissonance into their own essay to find a more interesting resolution. It proves that inspiration can come from the most tangential sources.
If you have the right lens. It's all about looking at the roadblocks, the friction, the madokusai, not as impediments, but as the actual raw material of the path forward.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. We've talked a lot about multi-million-dollar institutions, TV networks, and jazz composers, but think about the architecture of your own life.
Right. Your work, your routines.
Are you structuring your life to avoid the note fa? Are you playing the safe mi dachak, re mi melody every single day just to avoid making a mistake?
Are you relying on the same conversational patterns, the same workflows, simply because they are comfortable?
What approach notes, what uncomfortable, awkward, seemingly forbidden constraints could you force upon yourself right now to break that stagnation? Maybe it's time to build your own NG list for your daily habits.
Maybe resolving a conflict without using email.
Yeah.
Put yourself in that uncomfortable spot.
The initial feeling will be anxiety. It will be the uncomfortable fay. Your brain will scream at you that the math is wrong, but remember the dohamari. Remember the dopamine hit of the resolution. You have to create the tension to experience the breakthrough. Sometimes the absolute best thing you can do for your own genius is to put yourself in a straitjacket, throw away the key, and see how you manage to escape.
Thank you so much for joining us in this intellectual journey today. It's been a fascinating ride.
It really has. Stay curious, embrace the hassle, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.
Which sound did you like? I love both of them. Even a small phrase of music, it is the greatest treasure from the muse.
If you enjoyed this, smash the like button, give this video some hype to help it reach more people, and hit subscribe so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.